Hi guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, thank you for dropping by. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you. You are the best. Please like, please subscribe. Just subscribe. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt you. It definitely doesn't hurt me, so subscribe. I pretty much just want to show you how I made this outfit I'm wearing in this video. And yeah, so just join me on a sew along of this outfit. You'll see the full thing at the end of the video. First things first, you want to get your two front pieces, the front piece and the facing. Then you want to pin it together at the V-neck point, like the lowest point, like that. Make sure it matches up. And you can see I've pinned one side and the other side. Then I'm going to sew along these lines over there, right down there. Just sew the V-neck, and then I'm going to sew the sides with 1 inch allowance. The V-neck I'm going to sew with 1/4 of an inch allowance. That's what I'm going to use. So you just take it to your machine and sew it. Be careful at the V-neck point. You want to make sure you turn it properly and you get a very good stitch right there. So I had to lift my footer up so I could turn it properly, and then I continued sewing. Once I had gotten my V stitch, you sew it all the way down. And you take your scissors and notch the V point, like the sharp V. You notch it so you can turn it inside out properly. Then you go ahead and sew the sides. I started off at the top with like a 1/2 inch allowance, and as I went down, as I progressed downwards, I increased it to a 1 inch seam allowance, 1 inch seam allowance. And when that's all done, when you've sewn both sides, you can turn it inside out and then check to see if you did it properly. Then you press it so you have a nice neat top piece. So you get your iron, and then you iron it, you press it down, make sure it's nice and neat. Go through all the edges carefully. You don't want your facing to overlap and show up at the front. But even if it does, it doesn't really matter because it's the same fabric, right? Remember, you could use a plain fabric for your facing. You see your top piece, it looks nice, right? So now we have to do the dots. And here I'm measuring out the dots 4 inches from the side, and then 4.5 inches. Well, I went to the top first to measure from the top to where my breast point is, and that was 11, and then I marked that, and so I used that to measure up. I think it was about 4.5 inches, and then I marked it together 4 inches from this from the side. Marked a straight line so that I can get my breast point. And once you've got your breast point, you just draw the line. You have to do it on the other side as well. So once you've done that, you want to fold it together on the dart line that you made, and take to your sewing machine and sew it, angling it to the point. I used a 1/2 inch allowance, and now I am trying to prep the straps. So I'm going to sew across at the top there and down the sides, 1/2 inch allowance, leaving the bottom open. So I've sewn the top, I'm sewing down the sides. So now that I've prepped it, I'm going to take my knitting pin. I left the bottom open. I'm going to take my knitting pin and push it through that end that was sewn, and push it all the way through out to the open end. And you take it, you push it through, and once you've pushed it through, you're going to use the pointy parts and make the edges come out properly, and the band's done. And then you're going to take your top piece, put it inside out, and take your band, whatever side you want, put it in there to fit through the shoulder part. Match it up so it's front sides to front sides. Match it up nicely. It's all matched up. You take the sewing machine and you just sew that down. Okie dokie, you trim off the excess thread, pull it out, and then you see you have your straps attached to the front piece, to the halter top. You do the same thing to the next side. Now we've done both sides, we have both straps attached. Lovely. Onto the shorts, we're going to measure the darts out for the shorts. I'm measuring on the front piece, and that's 4 inches. I'm marking from the edge, from the middle line or middle point. 4 inches going down. Then I marked 4.5 inches here, but I later actually increased it to 7 inches, so you can as well do yours to 7 inches long. And you do it for the other side, and you take the pieces to the sewing machine, fold it up, do like you did for the top, sew it with a 1/2 inch allowance, going all the way down and meeting up at the point. Then we take the back piece and you measure out the darts. For the back piece, I used 5 inches from the center line, from the crotch line, because of the seam allowance for the zipper. And so you mark 5 inches there, and you do it for the other side as well. And then marking 5 inches from the crotch or rise, whatever you may call it. And then you measure 4.5 inches down. The back doesn't need to be as long as the front. So I've done the darts, and now I want to sew the two the rise of the butt of the back piece together. So, but I'm not going to sew it all the way. I'm going to leave open like 8 inches for the zipper, or 7.5 inches, and then I'm going to sew the rest. So from that 7.5 inch point down. Yeah, so I'm sewing it to that point, and then back stitch, and you take it out. So you have your back piece, you have your front piece, and you want to match them up together. So I'm going to match them up at the crotch first, and you're gonna, because you want to make sure that's really like placed properly, and you see it's equal. And so when you match it up like that, you take your pin, just put your pin in place so it doesn't move while you're sewing, and you take it to machine and sew it together. You just sew it carefully, curve it, done. Cut off any excess thread so you have it matched up at the crotch. And what you want to do is sew the sides, both sides, with a 1 inch seam allowance. Actually, I think I used 1/2 inch seam allowance. And I did both sides, and now I'm taking my tape to measure the front to see that I have the right waist length for the front, and I'm measuring the back to see that I have the right one as well. So I've tried it on just to see how it fits, and as I tried it on, I realized the back piece is a bit big, so I'm going to take it at the darts at the waist a bit more, but not all the way down, just at the waist. I want it to be tighter at the waist. And then I noticed that it's a bit too long. I want it to be shorter, so I'm going to cut it off, cut some of it off at the shorts. So it'll look like that. That's how I want it to look, and I can attach the frills to it, make more sense. So here I'm notching the center of the top piece, just so I know where the center is, so I can match it up with the center of the shorts. So I get my shorts and I look for the center, I turn it inside out, and then I match my front piece center to the front piece of the shorts center, and I pin it there and just make sure it's in place, and I pin it there as well. I just pin it on both sides. So I've pinned it, and I'm taking it to my machine to sew, to join them together. You just sew it down with a 1/2 inch allowance, and then you have your front piece attached to your front piece of the shorts, or your top piece attached to the front piece. But you can see there's some lettering showing, so I'm going to take it in a bit more. So I'm going to make it now a 5/8 of an inch allowance instead of the 1/2 inch that I did, so that the lettering I can hide the lettering that was showing. You sew it all down. So it's all done and it looks neat now, no lettering showing. So I want to fold over the waist of the back piece to press it to create a hem. You fold it over again inside of that first fold and you press it again. Just do it nice and slowly and nice and neat. And you see you finished folding it, you have your hem, and then you need to go do it on the other side and sew it down, sew both sides down. You have it. So now you've finished everything. You want to bring it out and we're going to put in the zipper. So that opening that we left at the bum area at the back piece, we're going to put our invisible zipper, 8-inch zipper. I think it's 10-inch actually. And you just 8-inch. You put it the right side of the zipper to the right side of the fabric, of one side of the fabric. And you open, I had to open the zipper so I could like properly place it and pin it before sewing it. So I opened the zipper and you fold over the zipper edge over the fabric like that, and then you get your pin and pin it in place. So you just want to pin it all the way down with a 1-inch seam allowance, so that when you put your zipper foot, the zipper foot is placed right at the edge of the teeth of the zipper, leaving a 1-inch seam allowance. So I had to move it a bit because it wasn't exactly a 1-inch seam allowance. And you pin it in and it's placed, and just place it all the way down. Then you change your zipper foot, your foot to the zipper foot, like I'm doing here. And you take your zipper to take your fabric and the zipper to the machine, and then you just sew along with a 1-inch seam allowance. I was just changing it to the proper stitch. You sew it all the way down, nice and neat. Then you do the same thing on the other side. You see we have one side done, so we do the same thing on the other side with the right side of the zip facing the right side of the other part of the other back piece. You fold it down there first because you always want the top pieces to match exactly. So you fold it down there and pin it, and then you just adjust it, pin it, make sure it has a 1-inch seam allowance like you did on the first side, and then you take it to your machine and sew it down. Now our zipper is all done, nice and neat. So the shorts kind of done. What is left is the frills. So you see my frill, I cut it and it looks nice. It's nice and long. You first have to change your stitch to the basting stitch. So I'm just zooming in to show you what the basting stitch looks like. I guess your machine might not be computerized, but you pretty much want a long stitch, the longest stitch you can get. And you want to pull out the threads, the top thread and the bottom thread, so you have long pieces of thread hanging, and then you just sew all the way around. Sew the basting stitch all the way around, slowly going around so that you don't like sew out of place. Then you need to pull it out again, so you have a long piece of thread and you cut in the middle, and then you have a long piece of thread left over for the next line, because you're going to do 2 lines and you don't want them to be more than 1/4 of an inch apart from each other. So the first line was supposed to be 1/4 of an inch from the top, and then this second line 1/4 of an inch from that one. So I've changed my stitch back to the regular stitch so I don't forget. You take your 2 top threads, and separate them from the threads beneath, from the bobbin threads. You have that in place, and then you have it on the other side, because it's a circle, they meet up at the same place. So you see those threads? Have the other side as well. You're just gonna try and get both of them and hold on to them. Get the bobbin thread out of the way and start pulling on it to gather it gently, so you don't like strain the fabric too much and cut the thread. You pull on it and you just keep doing that round and round and round, pulling. At some point you're going to pull from the next side. I think I switched sides here and started pulling from the other side. So I think I've gathered enough. I just want to measure to make sure it's 11.25 inches or so. I'm just measuring it to make sure, because that's the width of my thigh, like 1/2 anyways, and it looks like it's 11.25. So I just want to tie off the ends of those long threads I've pulled so that they don't like lose their place. I'm tying it twice. You do it for both sets of threads, and then you cut it off. And you see you have your frills. Now you're gonna attach it to your thigh. So you make sure your shorts are inside out. So you match the front of the frill to the front of the shorts, the front sides or the right sides of the frill to the right sides of the shorts. And you pin it all around. You take it to your machine and you sew it around. You sew it around. I'm just pinning it all around, and then I'm gonna sew it all around. And I've sewn it, and now you see when I turn it right sides out that my frill has been attached to my thigh, to my shorts. And you do it for the other side so that you can have both frills attached. You make sure everything is neat. Cut off any excess thread as usual. And then I saw that, some of the basting stitch was showing, so I just removed that. And that's pretty much the end of the tutorial. This is the final result. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from this video. Maybe learned how to make this outfit I'm making, hopefully. If something was not clear, you have any questions, or you have any specific requests of how to make any outfit, let me know. Contact me or just leave a comment, and I can do specific tutorials or sew-alongs for you. So yeah, thank you guys for watching again. If you didn't subscribe, you can do it now. It's not too late. You can share this video as well. I would appreciate it. Thank you for supporting your girl.